Welcome back to New World Next Week. I'm James Corbett of CorbettReport.com.
And I'm James Evan Pilato of MediaMonarchy.com. No more than an encounter in which the members of the club and their guests enjoy nature in a series of cultural activities. We have got that fun-loving story, plus dimming the summer solstice sun. But first, Representatives Massey and Khanna introduced bipartisan war efforts resolution to prevent war with Iran. Taking this, of course, from antiwar.com. On Tuesday, Representative Thomas Massey, Republican from Kentucky, and Ro Khanna, Democrat from California, introduced a bipartisan war powers resolution in an effort to prevent Trump from going to war with Iran without authorization from Congress, the way it's supposed to be. Senator Tim Kaine, even, Hillary's former running mate, introduced a similar war powers resolution in the Senate. Americans can contact their House representatives and senators, maybe tell them your name's Vance Boatler or Luigi Mangione, and urge them to join efforts to prevent war with Iran. The Constitution does not permit the executive branch to unilaterally commit an act of war against a sovereign nation that hasn't attacked the United States, Massey said in a statement on the bill. Congress has the sole power to declare war against Iran. The ongoing war between Israel and Iran is not our war. Even if it were, Congress must decide such matters according to our Constitution, Massey said. Khanna added that no president should be able to bypass constitutional authority of Congress over matters of war, and that the American people don't want to be dragged into another disastrous conflict in the Middle East. A new YouGov poll shows that 60% of Americans and 53% of Trump voters oppose the U.S. getting involved in the Israel-Iran war, and only 16% support the idea. I imagine that might be just the bipartisan 16 period. 14 other Democrats are original co-sponsors of the bill, and it does include AOC and the Squad and 11 more. And Khanna is asking other Republicans to join the effort, including Representative Marjorie the Gathering, as I like to call her, MTG, who's been very critical of the march towards war as well. We have 14 progressives. Let us show anti-war is no longer partisan, Khanna wrote on X. The other related notes, also from antiwar.com, Trump says he knows the location of Iran's leader, demands unconditional surrender, and the latest U.S. intelligence shows Iran was not pursuing a nuclear bomb before Israel's attack. Remember, they're always just a few days away from having a missile, so says Netanyahu, for 30 years. And an exclusive from Middle East Eye, U.S. quietly sent hundreds of Hellfire missiles to Israel before the attack. James, just a little bit ago in my members-only community, I had people asking, hey, can you create a World War III room so we can just chat about specifically that? I compromised and just changed the Ukraine room to WW3. James?
Unfortunately, that seems like an apt transition to make at this point because in some way, maybe they all connect with each other, as I've been saying since 2007. World War III starts in Iran, and I was noting the war tones that were being struck by, for example, Putin, warning about Iran at that time back in 2007. And here we are in 2025, still talking about it. And yes, as you say, demonstrably on the record, 30 plus years, Bibi Netanyahu, unconvicted war criminal, has been saying the exact same thing. They're just months away, just a few years away, just a couple months away, just 6 months away. Definitely by next spring, they will have a nuclear weapon. And I can say that advisedly because not even some far-out conspiracy fringe channel, but no, CNN put together a compilation of some of Netanyahu's greatest hits since 1995. So we'll link that up from Zero Hedge. Bibi warning Iran nuclear bomb capability imminent, spanning 30 years. But we all know what this is. This is WMD 2.0. This is the lie that they are selling to force another war in the Middle East that nobody wants. But hey, here it comes. And in some ways, at least WMD 1.0, they had to put on the theatrics of aluminum tubes and yellow cake and all that nonsense in order to sell the public on the lies. This time, it's really just, trust me, bro, which is essentially what it boils down to. Even when Trump's national security advisor comes out and says Iran was not working on a nuclear bomb. And he says, oh, I don't care what Tulsi says. They were close. So, lest there be any doubt about which tail is wagging which dog, we have this, also from antiwar.com. President Trump told Netanyahu to keep going in Iran, which also notes that Trump said Netanyahu is a good man who has been treated unfairly. Yeah, this is all about, oh, poor Netanyahu. Man, I hope he gets his war so that he can feel a little bit better. Exactly. Smallest violin in the world playing for him. Also, The Cradle is reporting on a top Pentagon official who has just been sacked for daring to criticize U.S. support to Israel. So make no mistake about it, guys. As we've been saying for years here on New World Next Week, make America great again is make Israel great again. And we should never have any delusions that Trump has ever deviated from that particular tune. The only question, with the always present New World Next Week chronological caveat, we are here recording this. It is Thursday morning, June 19th, 9:20 a.m. Japanese Standard Time. So whatever happens in the next 24 hours between us recording this and you seeing it, we don't know about. But having said that, how do we get from here to there? Well, as I know, I heard you talking about on your Tech Tuesday morning edition of Morning Monarchy this week, the USS Nimitz is coming into the region, and well, wouldn't you know, they're just about set to decommission her, but there she is coming in to back things up there in the Middle East. What if she went down through something or other? I guess it was the Iranians. We better go in guns blazing. It's certainly always the ever-present possibility of the false flag specter. Smells like the USS Liberty, doesn't it? Anyway, it's a possibility. All I can say is I have read a lot of analysis on this from all sorts of different sources. I currently have an open thread up on the site about Israel attacks Iran, going through everything that was known at the time when I posted that up, and then there's hundreds of comments from Corbett Report users in there updating with the latest information so people can go for more information about that. But all I know is this is big. Whatever happens, even if this doesn't, and let's hope it does not eventuate into that regional war that could very quickly become a very real world war, it's still going to be big. But don't take my word for it. Take Trump's. The next week is going to be very big. Maybe less than a week, he says. According to Zero Hedge, in an article, Trump has reportedly approved Iran attack plans, but is withholding final order. So buckle up, folks. It's going to be an interesting week, or a few days, or who knows. But anyway, I guess we'll be here to report on it next week, assuming we're all still here next week. Right, James?
Well, I imagine we'll still be alive. The satellites and our ability to freely disseminate information might be severely curtailed. And the speculations of what Netanyahu was talking about the other day when he said, today it's Tel Aviv, tomorrow it's New York. And we were heading into a Tuesday at that point, so it's like, I don't know. For what it's worth, and we've obviously been now talking about this for the last nearly 2 years, how the cracks have appeared, and suddenly now it is okay for some people to openly at least question our unbreakable relationship with Israel. I mean, we've speculated, why is it suddenly so okay for this to be done? Why is Obama's kids getting involved with it at a school? Suddenly seeming like it had kind of been given the tacit approval. I would like to think that it's just the natural breakdown of after decades of propaganda. Even normies, even someone in my family might go, you know, we do spend an awful lot of money on them. Even if you just get it on the financial level, that money should be for America, which it should. So for what it's worth, people are openly questioning Israel again. I mean, it's like, how bad are you doing when CNN is putting together supercut dunks on you? Whew. Okay, I feel like we've got a lot of sighs coming up on this New World Next Week, episode 594, as we move to our second story, and really the only mainstream media I could find on Bohemian Grove is this Chilean article translated from Spanish to English. It might be wonky, but archive.is won't archive an English translation through the browser. Bohemian Grove, the secret camp for elites that fuels theories about the control of the world. At the July meeting, more than 2,000 members of the world's elite were named in Monte Rio, California. There, the Bohemian Grove, Bosque de la Bohemia, which began as a cabal club, is full of live shows featuring singers, theater works, and different types of art. Some of the most important figures who have passed through the congregation, according to the archives recorded by the BBC, are the ex-president of the United States, Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, Henry Kissinger, George Bush, as well as multi-millionaire David Rockefeller. I like the tacit admittance that, Kissinger is basically president. But the origin of the camp is far from elitist court that holds today. On the contrary, in its beginnings in 1872, it was a form of bringing together the figures of the spectacles and the arts. For one of its first integrals is the writer Mark Twain and the writer Jack London. Although, in actuality, the existence of this type of congregation is no mystery, the Bohemian Grove has its own significance, as the extraneous customs and hermeticism of the same have caused various conspiracy theories to arise. This article's awesome. Within this secret society, where government figures are reunited with international businessmen, a particular pagan ritual takes place, which has given rise to various confusions. Consider that Sam Singer, voice of the congregation, told the average Briton that it was an innocent meeting between world leaders, no more than an encounter in which the members of the club and their guests enjoy nature in a series of cultural activities that include concerts, theater works, recitals, and chats about current assumptions. However, on this first night of the week of the camp, everyone returns to a small lake located somewhere near 1,100 hectares of land where the cremation of care ceremony takes place, which translates as query of worries. I don't know about that one. This particular rite consists in that members are seen with large tunics and capuchas and carrying torches, with the symbols that they envisage in front of an effigy. Something like the representation of a human, which they carry covered with a cloak, and then they will incinerate in front of a giant statue of a hole of more than 12 meters from high seas following BBC reception, as highlighted by the American journalist Alex Jones, who infiltrated the Bohemian Grove in 2000 and could grab the moment. Because this controversial cap came to light massively during 2013, thanks especially to TikTok. The topic has seen a resurgence, as are the many conspiracy theories that circulate it. Let's not forget that the theme of the club is "Weaving Spiders Come Not Here," in reference to the fact that these world leaders cannot use their power within this secret society. James, I think that pretty much tells the story of the Bohemian Grove, but it also tells it in this weird, garbled post-AI world where not many things make sense. James?
You know, at first I was a little bit like, oh, I don't know if I like this wonky translation, but you know what? You sold me on it. I think it's kind of awesome. And I am going to start saying extraneous instead of extraneous. I think that's awesome. Anyway, yeah, it is interesting at any rate that we have to go to some Chilean news article in order to get any information about the Bohemian Grove. Why is that? I guess there are probably a number of reasons, one of which, of course, like most of these types of events and meetings of various sorts, you can tell when it's a real meeting of people who are genuinely powerful when there's no reporting on it. But secondarily, I think it's also because of the sort of the unreportable nature of Bohemian Grove. Unless you infiltrate, unless you sneak in, all you can do is kind of, get some footage of some woods and say, somewhere in there, they're meeting, right? And there have been many infiltrations. Of course, you named the Alex Jones one, but just last year, remember, we were reporting on NW 562, Are You Not Entertained? We were talking about the exclusive new Bohemian Grove footage that just came out, the HD footage of the cremation of care ritual that was snuck out last year, I guess. Anyway, so it's, unless we have that to look at, there isn't much to really report on with Bohemian Grove. And I think people are kind of, we know that exists and whatever. Having said that, of course, you do note that "Weaving Spiders Come Not Here" is their phrase, slogan, whatever. It's also, of course, the inspiration for Dan Dix's YouTube channel, which is called, the YouTube channel is Weaving Spider, obviously a reference to that, as in, I'm going to go there, right? And, of course, as I know you know, recently, friend of the show, Dan Dix, was there in Bilderberg and got an interesting attempt at asking questions to Peter Thiel, who was absolutely booking it to get away from him. So we'll include that link as well for people who haven't seen it yet. But yeah, at Bilderberg, at the very least, you can get some of these interactions with some of the attendees outside of the hotel. But at Bohemian Grove, there's not much to really report on.
James, I do not recall the new footage. Heck, I always do this day what I've covered in the past. As I do a daily show, there's a lot of anniversaries to hit. One I was going to mention earlier was the anniversary of Stolan Heights, Trump neighborhood unveiled, and that was, just the Trump 1.0. I forget about this new footage. The main thing I remember is the lawsuits from employees. And I don't think they were saying, oh, we're abused. It's like some Diddy Epstein cult. I think it was more just like, these working conditions suck. Which is kind of a classic lament. I think also, even though we have nothing on Bohemian Grove, some wonky-ass article I just read you and made it as good as I possibly could, it marks the passage of time for us at this point, James. Now that we've been doing this each for 20 years and doing New World Next Week for 15 years, it just is it's like, oh, well, here it is again. We have to kind of make that note. And as we have said before, imagine, I first wrote out in my notes, imagine if it was Johnny Depp. Imagine if it was Taylor Swift. Imagine if it was anyone even remotely like that, how much they might try to get in to see what was going on. With RIPs to Brian Wilson, we move to our final story this week. Britain's enemies condemn the sun and weaponize the weather. Ministers are preparing for a scenario in which a hostile foreign power could weaponize sun-dimming technology, the Telegraph can disclose. A ministerial letter, as seen by the Telegraph, states the government wants to understand the risks of an independent or third-party actor deploying technologies to reflect sunlight away from the Earth. Imagine. Experts said these third-party actors could include countries taking drastic action to lower their carbon emissions, or hostile nations such as, of course, Russia, using solar energy to orchestrate an environmental disaster against their enemies. It'd be like trying to use defoliants in Vietnam with Monsanto's help. Solar engineering, also known as solar radiation modification, seeks to limit global warming by reducing the amount of sunlight that reaches the Earth. One of the most researched techniques involves shooting aerosols into the atmosphere to reflect sunlight back into space. In the letter, Kerry McCarthy, the climate minister, writes, the UK is a long-standing leader on climate action and an active international collaborator in scientific research. You heard them say it themselves, they're collaborators. The government recognizes the need to understand the risks and impacts of solar radiation modification approaches that could be deployed by an independent or third-party actor. Robust scientific evidence is essential for informing responsible and inclusive governance. Now let's travel all the way back to April. British scientists given £50 million to explore sun-dimming technologies. Good night, everybody. The government is giving a team of British scientists £50 million to research techniques to dim the sun in order to tackle the worst consequences of climate change. As we've joked many times before, the years change, but the faces, and they may change as well. But you can swap them out and the agenda rolls ahead. Can you believe what Russia's going to do? We're doing it. One from Off Guardian, James, before I throw it back to you. They're warning us about weaponizing the weather because they are weaponizing the weather. And they know that, unfortunately, most dum-dums will just go, Russia did it. James.
In a way, James, you almost have to feel sorry for the propagandists because they are attempting to thread the needle on this insoluble problem. They have to simultaneously introduce the concept of geoengineering and chemtrail spraying and all of this to the public and say that it's a good thing and it's wonderful. But at the same time, they have to keep the demonization of people who are against that technology. So how are we going to do this? Obviously, for decades, they have just pretended it didn't exist and you're all crazy. But that is changing, right? They have to sort of open the kimono a little bit on this story. So how do they do this? So we're seeing these ridiculous logical pretzel knots being tied by the propagandists at the moment, where, hey, the British scientists have come up with this awesome new idea to help solve climate change, and at the same time, Russia is trying to dim the sun. Oh my God. Bill Gates is trying to dim the sun. Yay! Russia is trying to dim the sun. Oh my God. I mean, it is bizarre. And I've noticed this about this issue in particular for many years. I had a podcast way back, 15 years ago or 17 years ago or something, where I was talking about the sort of inevitable progression of so many of these conspiracy realities. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. You're crazy. It doesn't exist. To it exists, and it's a good thing that exists. And if you don't like it, you're crazy. So I think we're seeing some variant of that, but it is interesting that, of course, why do they have to demonize the opposition to this right now? It's because the opposition to this is gaining momentum and gaining steam. As noted in a recent AP article just from this past week, unsubstantiated chemtrail conspiracy theories lead to legislation proposed in U.S. state houses. And for people who don't know, I think it's 8 states now, maybe more at this point, have proposed legislation to actually stop chemtrail spraying over their skies. Now, obviously, be skeptical about what such legislation will actually be capable of doing. But hey, the fact that it is even being raised at state legislature level is a significant progress. And that's why I think they're coming out with this demonization campaign. At the same time as they have to admit the technology exists, even the language of that AP article I found interesting. Instead of like debunked, nonsense, untrue, no, it's unsubstantiated chemtrail conspiracy theories. Like, it could be substantiated. We're still waiting for some evidence or something along those lines. So again, they're trying to thread the needle on this. Anyway, we know better. We're the few, the enlightened, the informed. But your neighbors, your friends, your relatives probably don't know what's going on here. And this might be the perfect way to show them. Hey, see this article from April where they were talking about this wonderful new idea? And see this article from yesterday where they say it's, the Russians or the Iranians, I'm sure they'll come up with pretty soon. I don't know. I just think it's probably one of those things that'll help people to see through the propaganda.
And give them the normiest link you can possibly find. ABC, NBC, whatever. Don't use us in this situation. Not just yet. You hold out for that just a little bit later when they come back and ask you and go, man, that thing you sent me, it's really real? It is really real because they'll see their trusted local news organizations talking about it, and it's like Pinocchio. It becomes a real boy. It's kind of like parents, now they wouldn't necessarily think as much about marijuana because it's become de facto legal now. Isn't it interesting? Yeah. Also, the words, the language that they use, unsubstantiated, because we haven't done any substantive investigative journalism into it. We don't really know the answers to that question. The gymnastics involved in all of this, man, it's some cardio workout for people. But maybe this is another, as we've talked about since January at least, the upside of MAGA, of making America healthy again, of people thinking about what might be in their skies. And that is New World Next Week, episode 594. We run newworldnextweek.com for Media Monarchy gear, Korber Report gear. And James, I have music compilations that are up there. I want to say thanks to Theodore. He bought the whole dang bunch the other day, so he's got essentially a week's worth of music from rock, electronic, country, eclectic, and pop. So all that and more is available at newworldnextweek.com, and that's the way that keeps us fear-free and ad-free. James, I have to say, just even this past week, suddenly links that didn't work on old New World Next Week episodes, doodly-doot, with the YouTube channel being resurrected. It's like, oh my gosh, there it is. It's back. So I use the exclusive audio of these New World Next Week episodes, as Corbett's talking about. It usually will be about nearly 24 hours before he has it published. I play the audio off of these videos before it is published anywhere after my Thursday morning stream at MediaMonarchy.com. And that brings me to my last big note I want to make, and that is the summer solstice coming this weekend and my Midsummer Nights stream. It is a marathon live DJ video set /fundraiser/membership drive /mofos act like they forgot about monarchy. I am calling it a Midsummer Night's Stream. I will include all the links right here in these show notes. I'm going to be on X. I'm going to be on Discord. I'm going to be on D Live. I hope to be on BitChute. As again, it can't be news and politics all the time. I am a professional former radio DJ. Again, maybe I should tell folks as well. This isn't wiki turntablist. I never learned how to beat match. I am a radio disc jockey. So I will be playing all the music styles. Yes, there will be techno, but I'm sure I'll play all kinds of country and oldies and 45s. I have a pretty rad record collection I've been working on my entire life. So all that is coming up this Saturday. I will put all the notes up at MediaMonarchy.com. James, I don't actually know when I'm going to start, but I know that once it gets a rolling, I will probably keep going for quite some time. It ties in with summer solstice. A Midsummer Night's Dream is set over the summer solstice. It is the longest day of the year, and it just seems like the perfect time to have a little bit of fun here halfway through the year as everyone worries we might get blown up. So again, I'm doing this pretty much as a, hey, remember Media Monarchy? We could use your support. So we will be throwing up all the ways for people to do the super chats and the tips and whatever you call it, and all that will be at MediaMonarchy.com. James.
Awesome. Well, I'm there for it, so I hope other people will be as well. I think that's going to just about do it, but I should note, we didn't end with the New World Next Week, Si. We managed to avoid it this week, so I think that's a good sign. Maybe the world isn't ending. Or even if it does, at least it'll end on a happy note. So on that note, we'll see you on the stream this weekend, and I'll see you next week for New World Next Week.
Thanks so much, buddy, man. Take care.
Take care.